At the same time, these instructions were being reported to Caesar. Envoys from the Aedui and the Treveri arrived. The Aedui complained that the Herudes, who had recently been brought into Gaul, were ravaging their lands and that they had not been able to purchase peace from Ariovistus even by giving hostages. The Treveri reported that 100 cantons of the Suebi had settled on the banks of the Rhine and were attempting to cross into their territory, led by the brothers Nashua and Symbarius. These developments deeply disturbed Caesar, and he considered it necessary to act quickly to prevent the possibility of a new force of Suebi joining with Ariovistus's existing troops, which would make it much harder to resist them. Therefore, he quickly gathered supplies and set out towards Ariovistus with forced marches. After marching for 3 days, he received news that Ariovistus with all his forces was heading to occupy Vesontio, the largest town of the Sequani, and that he had advanced 3 days' march from his own territory. Caesar believed he had to take precautions to prevent this from happening. Vesontio was well stocked with all kinds of supplies useful for war, and its natural fortifications provided a significant advantage. The town was almost entirely surrounded by the river Doubs, which curved around it like a compass, and the remaining space, not more than 1,600 feet where the river did not cover, was enclosed by a high mountain, whose roots extended to the riverbanks on both sides. A wall surrounding this mountain formed a citadel that connected with the town. Caesar hurried to the town with forced marches day and night, occupied it, and stationed a garrison there. While he stayed at Vesontio for a few days to arrange for supplies and provisions, reports from his men and the words of Gauls and merchants revealed that the Germans were of enormous stature, incredible bravery, and extraordinary skill in arms. They claimed that they often encountered the Germans and could not even withstand their gaze or the glare of their eyes. Suddenly, a great fear seized the entire army, causing no small disturbance in their minds and spirits. This fear first arose among the tribunes of the soldiers, the prefects, and others, who, out of personal friendship, had followed Caesar from the city but had little experience in military affairs. Each of these individuals presented various reasons they deemed necessary for their departure, requesting permission to leave, while some, driven by shame to avoid suspicion of fear, stayed behind. These individuals could neither mask their expressions nor sometimes hold back their tears. They hid in their tents, either lamenting their fate or mourning the shared danger with their friends. Throughout the camp, wills were being sealed. The words and fear of these individuals gradually disturbed even those who had considerable experience in the camp, including soldiers, centurions, and cavalry commanders. Those who wanted to be considered less fearful claimed they did not fear the enemy, but the narrowness of the journey and the vastness of the forests between them and Ariovistus, or worried about the food supply being adequately transported. Some even informed Caesar that when he ordered the camp to move and the standards to be carried, the soldiers would not obey due to their fear and would not carry the standards. Observing this, Caesar convened a council with all the centurions of every rank and severely reprimanded them. First, he criticized them for considering or asking into which part or by what plan they were being led. He reminded them that Ariovistus, during his consulship, had eagerly sought the friendship of the Roman people. Why would anyone now judge that he would depart from duty so recklessly? Caesar assured them that, with his demands known and the fairness of the conditions understood, Ariovistus would neither reject his nor the Roman people's goodwill. But if, driven by madness and fury, he waged war, why should they fear? Why should they despair of their own valor or Caesar's diligence? They had tested the enemy during their father's memory, when C. Marius had driven back the Cimbri and Teutons, and the army seemed to deserve no less credit than the commander himself. They had also recently fought in Italy against the rebellious slaves, who had been aided by some use and discipline they had received from the Romans. From this, they could judge the advantage of steadfastness, as they had feared those who had been unarmed for a long time without reason, and later defeated them armed and victorious. Finally, the same Germans, often encountered by the Helvetii, had been defeated not only in their own lands, but also in the lands of the Germans. Yet they had not been equal to our army. If the recent defeat of the Gauls and their flight disturbed them, they could discover that Ariovistus, after a prolonged war, had attacked the Gauls when they were exhausted by long campaigns, desperate for battle, and dispersed, and had won more by strategy and planning than by bravery. While this approach might have worked against barbarians and inexperienced men, Caesar did not believe it could ensnare the Roman armies. Those who attributed their fear to concerns over the food supply or the narrow passages acted arrogantly, doubting the general's duty or presuming to dictate it. Caesar assured them he had taken care of these matters. The Sequani, Luci, and Lingons were providing grain, and the crops were now ripe in the fields. They would soon judge the route for themselves. As for the claim that the soldiers would not follow orders or carry the standards, he was not troubled. He knew that any army that disobeyed orders either did so due to misfortune or was convicted of some crime of greed. His own unblemished life and his success in the Helvetian War testified to his integrity and good fortune. Therefore, he would move the camp during the fourth watch of the next night to see whether shame and duty or fear held more power. And if no one else followed, he would still go with only the 10th Legion, in which he had full confidence and which he would consider his personal guard. Caesar had particularly favored this legion and trusted in their valor the most. After the speech was given, the mindset of everyone was remarkably transformed, and a great enthusiasm and eagerness for waging war arose. The 10th Legion, through their tribunes, thanked Caesar for having such a high opinion of them, and assured him that they were ready and prepared to fight. Then the other legions approached the tribunes and centurions of the first ranks, expressing their desire to assure Caesar that they had never doubted or feared, and that they believed the decision on the war's outcome was the general's responsibility, not theirs. With their reassurance accepted and a route explored through Diviciacus, whom he trusted greatly among the Gauls, Caesar planned to lead the army through a longer but open route of more than 50 miles. As he had said, he set out at the fourth watch. On the 7th day of continuous march, scouts informed him that Ariovistus's forces were only 24 miles from his own. Upon learning of Caesar's approach, Ariovistus sent envoys to him, stating that the meeting Caesar had previously requested could now take place since he had come closer and deemed it safe to do so. Caesar accepted the proposal, thinking that Ariovistus was coming to his senses as he was now willing to meet voluntarily, something he had previously refused. Caesar hoped that, knowing the considerable benefits he and the Roman people had bestowed upon him, Ariovistus would cease his obstinacy. The meeting was scheduled for the 5th day from then. Meanwhile, as envoys were frequently sent back and forth, Ariovistus requested that Caesar not bring any infantry to the meeting, expressing fear of being surrounded by an ambush. He proposed that both parties come with cavalry only. Caesar, unwilling to cancel the meeting and also not trusting his safety to the Gallic cavalry, decided to dismount the Gallic horsemen and place soldiers of the 10th Legion, in whom he had the utmost confidence, on their horses, so that he would have the most reliable guard if anything required action. This arrangement led to a joke among the soldiers of the 10th Legion that Caesar was doing more than he had promised, for he had promised to treat them as his praetorian cohort, but was now having them serve as mounted troops. There was a large plain, and in it a sizable mound of earth. This place was about equally distant from both Ariovistus's and Caesar's camps. As agreed, they came to the meeting. Caesar stationed the legion he had brought on horseback about 200 paces from the mound. Ariovistus did the same with his cavalry at an equal distance. Ariovistus requested that they talk on horseback and each bring only 10 men to the meeting besides themselves. When they met there, Caesar began by recounting the benefits he and the Senate had bestowed upon Ariovistus, reminding him that he had been called a king by the Senate, made a friend, and received generous gifts. He emphasized that such honors were rarely bestowed and only for significant acts of service. Caesar pointed out that Ariovistus had gained these rewards through the goodwill and generosity of himself and the Senate, despite having no legitimate claim or reason to demand them. He also explained the ancient and justified bonds of friendship between the Romans and the Aedui, detailing how often and honorably the Senate had supported them, ensuring their supremacy in Gaul even before seeking Roman friendship. The Roman people's custom was to strengthen allies and friends, enhancing their status, dignity, and honor. Therefore, how could they allow anything brought into their friendship to be taken from them?